going to, the gist of this presentation is about how to get your page set up best for success and how to make sure you're using all the tools that are available to you to optimize your own strategy. This is not going to be about what kinds of posts work or what kind of things can I do on Facebook to gain reach or engagement or whatever it is. There's a lot of that out there in the world, and I'm happy to point you to some. But sorry, this looks like a trap for me. But what I've found is that there are a lot of things that you can do that some of them are just settings and things like that that you need to do just to get ready for success. And some of these things, I mean, even the biggest publishers have not taken the time to do recently, because they might be a few other things. So who am I? That's me. I'm Ned. I'm a former Lion. How many of you have taken one of my fundamentals webinars through the Center for Cooperative Media? Okay. So a few of you have already done with this. If you've done a Facebook one, which two of you have, right? all of this has already been in there. This is distilled down. My webinars, there are links at the end. They're an hour and a half long, and I go into a lot of this stuff in more detail. There's a lot more information. But I've crammed this down to hopefully be about 25 minutes so that we can talk more and answer questions. So I've been doing these one-on-one consultations, small group discussions, and other programs with Lion members, INN members, about 130 of them so far over the past year. And what I've learned from those conversations is that there's a bunch of little things that people can do that will make their lives easier and make their work on Facebook more effective. So why should you even pay attention to Facebook? A lot of us are very angry with Facebook. I understand that. But at the end of the day, it has 2.3 billion active users around the world. You cannot ignore that. That is where audiences are. And if you want to meet them, you have to go where they are. And industry-wide, this is going to Parsley. It's benchmarked at about 25 to 35% of a publisher's traffic right now, referral traffic right now. And what I've found in working with Lion publishers is that it tends to be even smaller. I mean, even larger. So it's really important. Real quick, these are the 10 things. I'm going to be going through them. I'm not going to read them at you, so you can just glance at them. You'll notice in the beginning, I had the bit.ly link to these slides. You can follow along if you want. If you need, I can go back to that. But the link is also at the end, so you can just look through it later too. Okay? So the first thing that I'm going to show you is the Media Partner Support Portal, or I'm going to tell you about is the Media Partner Support Portal. I'm not going to show it to you. Facebook has a special portal for media publishers, and as a member of Lion, INN, and a few other groups that generally work with the Center for Cooperative Media, we are able to get you to access to that. I can't give you the URL to request that access because this is being broadcast out into the public. So what you'll have to do is contact Stephanie Murray, and her email is there. Sorry, Steph. I thought you might be here, so she might give you a call. But one of the biggest things about the Media Partner Support Portal, and why you should do this today, is the ability to file tickets for bugs and request support. You can do this. Anyone can go and file a bug ticket on Facebook, and then wait like 2.5 years for a response that's a form response that says something that doesn't address your issue at all. And this will actually help flag the media partnership team, which can get a little more support and a little more attention to your needs. Okay, and then there are other tools in there. They might be telling you about post formats, new Facebook products. You can do verification badge requests before you're in the support portal, but it's been suggested to me that it's more effective afterwards. Does anyone have any questions about the verification badge? Because I don't want to spend a lot of time about that, but I do end up getting a lot of questions on it. Everyone know what I mean when I say Facebook verification badge? The blue check mark. Okay. The blue, you're shaking your head no. So I'm going to say it's the blue check mark next to your profile name. A lot of publishers have asked for it. It's kind of hard to get. I'm going to say that it's a nice to have, not a need to have. It does not help you in the algorithm whatsoever as far as anyone has proven. So,
Status symbol.
but
Cool status symbol.
And that's why people want it, and I don't care about status symbols. I care about what's going to work. So the next thing you want to do is, first of all, you want to make sure, just in general, that your page, when someone comes to, your page, Facebook, or facebook.com/your page, that page looks really good, because oftentimes Facebook is a place for meeting new audiences, right? So someone who does follow you already shares something in your feed. They don't know who you are. They click on your page, they land there. You are making your first impression. It needs to be polished. It needs to look good. And the very first thing that they see, whether it's on desktop or on mobile, and by the way, like 90-something% of the times, it's going to be mobile. So always look at your page in mobile. I'm going to say that a few times here. And yeah, so the cover photo is the first thing they see, and you want it to look good. But generally speaking, on that page, you really want to communicate very quickly, because people decide within seconds, if that, whether they're interested or not. You need to convey purpose, credibility, and a way that the reader can take an action, or a path to action or engagement. Okay? So the cover photo is the first thing the user sees, polished, reinforce your brand. Ways to do that. When you use high quality images, no blurry cell phone photos from 2013. I've seen that in cover photos. That does not really convey what you need. You can use video as well. You can use that space as a giant billboard, all right? So if the first thing they see is this big image, put some text over that image. Say something more about your publication. You can say the tagline, the mission. You can say words that kind of reinforce the things that you go over. Here's one I love. Sarah, she's here at Lion. She is a Lion member. It's called Mid-Ohio Valley. And she's actually used the feature because it's not just one photo or one video you can do. You can do actually a whole slideshow if you want. So she has 5. And as you swipe through it, it's all these really excellent. I wish the quality of the image on this thing was not so faded, because it's a really good image. But she has really excellent photos of people in action in the community in recognizable locations, all of which are reinforcing her brand. And then under her logo, it says flavor, it says adventure, it says excitement. And right away, just swiping through it, you're like, oh, this is like a lifestyle publication or a culture publication for the Mid-Ohio Valley. And it's really good. Okay, maybe they don't know it's Mid-Ohio Valley, it's MOV, but they know that much at least. There's another example, another line publisher, Sioux Falls Business. Jody has a background in broadcast, and so she made a sizzle reel. And when you go on their page, in fact, I really recommend it. She has a great strategy. It's siouxfalls.business. And it's a bunch of quick cuts and a bunch of shots of her interviewing people to some really exciting music. And again, you get a sense of what's going on. This is one in Brooklyn, where I come from, bkreader.com. They're another line. They're here today as well. And she used faces of her readers. She put them to work here. I wish I could just shut these lights. Anyway, they're all holding up her logo. Again, reinforcing the brand. And reinforcing also the idea that people like her brand. So you get some social proof in there as well.
Yeah, Joe, try.
I'm sorry?
Let me try.
Oh, sure.
How's that?
Better, yes, thank you. Yay. Another line, CT Digger. CT News Junkie. CT Digger's great too, by the way. And actually, so Doug did this, but he was actually inspired by yet another lion, Eastsider LA, Jesus Sanchez, who's not here. What I really want to point out here is that he's putting this thing to work, right? It's not just mission. It's not just his logo. He's pointing at the action. Do the sign up. There's a little bit of a flaw in this plan because on mobile that doesn't line up, but people still get the gist. And maybe even without the arrow, just saying sign up for our newsletter, it reinforces the sign up language that shows elsewhere on the page. So you can also use it for offers. You can use it. I've seen one line promoting the fact that they do advertising, that they sell advertising. And it's a great thing to promote events as well. Okay, so now we're on to number 3. Complete your About section. The content in your About section populates all throughout the Facebook ecosystem. It shows in the page previews, so when you're on desktop and you hover over a page's name, it comes up there. It comes up certain elements in search, and it's really powerful. But more than that, it's every bit of the About section is an opportunity to convert a reader. Someone has now landed on your About section. They want to know more about you. Sell yourself. Say, give them a compelling reason to follow you or do something else. So a couple things you definitely want to do: location and contact info. I know some of you work out of your homes, don't want to give everyone on the internet your home location. That's fine. Give as much as you can. If you are a local publication, you want to say the coverage area that you're in so it shows up. Again, it's conveying who you are and what you do. Page category. You get to choose 3 page categories. It helps a little with search. It helps probably when people are using the Explorer too. I don't know how often those things are used in Facebook, but every little bit helps. But more than that, the page category shows under your page's name in many, many, many locations. Again, in the page previews and search and elsewhere. But oftentimes, it's even though you get 3 categories, it only shows the first category. So it's really important that if you are a nonprofit news organization, for example, that you choose news as your first one, because you probably want to be recognized as a reader who's trying to find out what you are as a news organization, not a nonprofit. That's a secondary thing to your identity. Does that part make sense? Okay. You want to fill out the Our Story feature. This thing has been moving around a lot in the past couple of weeks on Facebook. I used to recommend it because it was incredibly prominent, but now it seems to have moved on some layouts and some of the A/B testing they're doing. I don't know what to recommend about it anymore, except that it's there, and in some versions of it, it's really prominent. If you don't know what the Our Story feature is, on desktop it shows up in the sidebar and now sometimes in the main column, and it's also on the About page. It's a photo, your name, it says Our Story, it gives you a sentence before a Read More, and then when you open up the Read More, it's basically a fully featured blog post. You can put more photos in there, you can put more links in there. You can link your newsletter, you can link your other social profiles, you can link your business directories, whatever it is. But you can also just tell your story and get people more engaged with who you are. Does that make sense? The link section in the About, often overlooked. Okay, so often you put your website link and you're like, what else do I have to link? They actually have link options for Instagram, for Twitter, for YouTube, and for a bunch of other things. So you can have a whole row of, or like a whole column of links essentially to different properties and different channels where they might prefer to follow you. They might have found you on Facebook, but they're really into following news organizations on Twitter, as an example. And then mission, about, and products. These are 3 areas, the text chunks that show up in the About Us section. Again, really compelling, really great areas for a compelling description of who you are, what you do, and how people can get involved. And one thing to note about these, oh good, it's actually visible on the screen, is that when you put text in there, when you put URLs in those areas, they actually become hyperlinked. You don't know that when you're creating it, it's only when you save it. And so it's not a highly, it's not a well-known thing, but you can see it here with the New York Times did. And up at the top, they have one that's at facebook.com/New York Times. I don't know why they chose that for their link on Facebook. But in their product section, they link their products and special offers. They link corporate solutions. They link student offers, and on and on and on. You can do the same thing for each section of your site. You can do it again for newsletters, your directories. You can do it to your ad rates. It's a really great place to do that kind of stuff. Number 4, use your call to action button. So I said I've spoken to about 130 publishers, and it is surprising how many didn't even realize that this was a feature on the page. And it is a feature, and it's incredibly prominent, not just here, but again, this is an area of Facebook that seems to be growing in prominence. Facebook is trying to give more of a reason, it seems, for retail businesses to have and maintain Facebook pages. And so they're kind of doubling down, it seems to me, on where this shows up. So it shows up on your page, and then if you are in a preview, again on desktop, when you hover over the title, it's right there. It's in various other areas in the app. It's a pretty powerful thing. And they have a whole lot of options. Some are donate. Oh, this is it in the page preview. So if no one knew what I was talking about, that's it. They have donate, they have place an order, learn more, join a group, they have watch a video. They have a whole bunch more, and I'm guessing they're always testing some more. I think for most news publishers, sign up is best. Sign up gives you a link that you can send them straight to your own newsletter sign up page, so it doesn't, it's not a lead gen thing on Facebook that you have to figure out a way to suck those email addresses out or anything. It's on your own page. And you can also put your own marketing text around it and make the case for signing up. Now, I've had some people, especially nonprofit publishers, ask me, well, why wouldn't I make it donate? And you can, and there are some scenarios in which I can see that working, so it's worth considering. Also things like join group, worth considering, depending on your strategy. But remember the use case of who lands on the Facebook page. Most of the time, it's someone who's just learning about your business. They're not likely to go and just donate to you right away. That's not how people behave. But they will give you an email address, and then you can email them every 5 minutes saying, give me money. And one cool thing about the sign-up feature, too, is that the results are measurable. Or on the CTA button in general, the results are measurable. If you go to your page insights, there's a section that says actions on page, and you can see how many people in that time frame have actually clicked that button. And I think you can also see where they're coming from. So sometimes people land on your page not from within Facebook itself. Sometimes your Facebook page shows up in a Google search, and that's an important thing to remember too. A lot of traffic comes in that way. Okay, next, a feature that recently got Facebook in a little bit of trouble. View as visitor. You as an admin of a page never see your own page the way your public sees it. You have all these tips from Facebook coming up. You have marketing messages from Facebook coming up. You have your admin tools. Things are ordered a different way. Some things they don't bother showing you because you know what your page is about. They're not going to show you chunks of your own about section. But the visitor sees that. And you need to know to go and look at that pretty regularly. I would say at least once a month. Make sure you're checking it and make sure you didn't make some mistake or something that you are not seeing and it's bleeding through. And the way you can do that is underneath the cover photo on a desktop is the ... view as page visitor. But more important than doing it this way is on mobile they call it preview. And it's a little different for Android and iOS. It's wherever the ... is on your page, and you click that, and it comes up, and you want to choose preview. So I've been plowing along pretty fast. We're halfway through. Any questions so far? Cool. Okay. So the next thing you want to do is start thinking about strategy. Okay. So you want to consider the best times to post. Your performance on Facebook is determined in large part by the speed with which people engage within a short time frame after it's posted. So basically, a post goes up. If no one comments, likes, etc., shares, looks at it, hovers on it on their screen, Facebook is tracking all that stuff. And if the sample group that they've shown it to does nothing, they only kind of increase that sample a little bit. If that sample group does a lot, they show it to everybody. If you get no action on a Facebook post within 24 hours, it will never see the light of day again. So it shows your content to a percentage of your followers online at any time. And so more followers that are online, more people included in the sample, and so more opportunity for engagement. So how do you check when people are online? You go into your page insights, you go to posts, and just about every line publisher and INN publisher that I have reviewed their analytics with them has this whale. And the blowhole, now this is a little skewed because this is a publication that publishes in Mountain Time. I checked it in Eastern Time, and it showed me Eastern Time, Mountain Time viewers in Eastern Time. So this should all be shifted back a little bit. Almost every publisher I've dealt with has had the blowhole between 6 and 9 p.m. Okay? And so that means you definitely want to have a post up at 6. And what it means, if you go to a bunch of meetings and then you do your write-up and you publish at 2 in the morning, you probably don't want to post it to Facebook at that time. No one's seeing it, okay? That doesn't mean, and I did have a publisher who came back to me and said, I started posting all my posts between 6 and 9 p.m. And I was like, no, that's a bad idea. You just want a really good one at 6 p.m. So that it kind of carries through, all right? But having a good one at 9 or 8, it usually starts rising between 7 and 9 a.m. There's usually a peak around lunchtime, and then there's a peak where people are getting bored at work, I've noticed. So little spikes in there, and you want to try those. Now this is not, this is something to study and learn from. It's not something to say, okay, wherever these little spikes are, that's exactly what I'm going to do with. You want to experiment around them. And you want to experiment with different types of content too, right? Certain things make more sense at certain times. If you do a weekly, where to get lunch piece, you might want to run that before lunchtime. You don't want to run that at 9 p.m. If you do commuting pieces, you might want to run it at 5 or 6 when not as many people are on. But it's just the right people that you want to hit. Another cool thing is if you hover over each of the days here, it gives you the outline compared against the 7-day average. So you can see that certain days, certain times, they have slightly different behaviors. I think Sunday mornings and Saturday nights, I might have that reversed. There's a little more of a sharp peak on many of the pages I've seen. Now, everyone is different, so that's why it's really important to know how to check your. Number 7, diversify your post types. How many of you just publish your links? You don't want to spend more time putting photos up or videos up or anything like that. Okay, you raised your hand. When you're on Facebook, do you just look at links? Do you look at a lot of links?
Well, yeah. Sort of. I'd like to know what friends and the news is out there.
So I'm the same way. We are atypical. People are not like us. Most people are looking at the baby photos, right? And the cat photos and the dog videos and that stuff. And what Facebook is doing is trying to figure out, when they show that sample that I mentioned before, they're trying to figure out who in that, to determine who should be in the sample. They're trying to look at your entire audience base of who's online now and say who would be most interested in this. And they're pretty good at it. And they look at thousands and thousands of data points, but one of the ones that they look at is not just how often do they interact with you as a publisher, how often do their friends interact with you as a publisher, but how often do they interact with the type of post that is. So if the post is a link, a photo, a video, a status update, or any one of the other kinds of posts, that is going to influence it. Now, my feed is probably a lot like yours. There's a lot of news links in there, because all I do is look at links on Facebook. And I'm really cheap with my likes and engagement on photos and other stuff. I don't care for it, and I never look at a video on Facebook. My wife's feed, all videos. And it's really interesting, by the way, anytime you can, to look at someone else's Facebook newsfeed. And if you ride the subway, great opportunity to be a group. Where was I going with that? Most people, right, so most people don't engage with links. So what you want to do is try different post types, because if you, yes?
Just let's say that we are 95% of what we are posting is links to good stories.
Mm-hmm.
If we try to put, yes, and if we try putting in funny stories from the in-house, from the newsroom, sort of thing, are we getting more people to see our links?
Potentially, yes, because they're engaging more with you, and that will help bring your links up too. They're saying, okay, maybe it also wants to try these other kinds of content formats from this publisher.
But the diversity in
right.
posts will help getting people to our news sites.
Yeah, Right, in theory, yes. And so yeah, and what you can actually do, you don't have to just do funny stuff that's happening around the newsroom, is actually you can take a story and repurpose it over and over again. So you publish the link one day, and the people who like links or have otherwise heavy engagement with your page, they're gonna click that and see that. But then the next day you do a photo from the story and give a quote, and in the caption you put the link. And then the next day you do an explainer video where you're staring at the camera just saying, this is what happened. You know, a real quick, low resource thing, and then in the comments you drop the link to the story. All these things can help. And the people who are more tuned into a certain kind of post might then go and find out more about you. And they would never have seen it if you just posted a link. Okay, so the way you can see how people interact with your posts is, again, by going to Insights, same place, Posts, Post Types. And then you can see how people are engaging with your kinds of posts. And so you won't have data here unless you are experimenting with different posts. It'll just say links. And then it'll just show, you know, the engagement and the reach for that. So that's another reason why you have to try all these different forms. Okay? Now I find that lines aren't diversified enough. We have this leaderboard in Crowdtangle. I'll get to Crowdtangle in a little bit. And it basically has most of the line members, and it's like 84% links. This is all the posts that they publish, 84% of them links. When I dug into this, that's not a bad number. When I dug into this, I found it was really weighted towards just a handful of publishers who were doing a lot of videos, a lot of photos, and then everyone else was 95 links, 95% links, okay? And that's what I've seen in my workshops and everything as well. So posting more types are going to allow you to collect that kind of data and then double down on it. You know, you might not have the kind of audience that likes photos. You know, if you are a political, if you're like a trade publication or something and you've managed to actually get a large following, I'm doubting myself on the strategy. I don't know. There could be a very serious publication that has a very serious audience that still somehow uses Facebook, and they just like links. It's a bad example, I'm sorry. So what other kinds of posts can you do? Okay, we know that there are photos, that there are videos, that there are links, obviously, and that there are status text. But there's all these other things that open up when you go to post on your own page, right? And it's worth looking at them. A lot of the times we ignore them. A lot of people will have access to different kinds of things. It all depends on whatever Facebook is A/B testing that day on the server that your thing actually happens on, right? Or the test group that you happen to be in. This is what I had on Wednesday. So you have photos. So some of the ones that are really good at photos for publishers, I think, are photos, lists. You can actually recruit users to help build a list, you know, top 10 pizzerias or something. You can do a poll, start a Q&A, kind of have an AMA with people. You can do stories, but the jury's kind of out, and that's a high level of effort kind of thing, sort of. And then within photos, it actually opens up this thing, and there are different things you can do. You can just do a photo or video. You can create an album. This is cool. You can stitch together a bunch of photos and make a slideshow. They had just, and I only discovered it when I went to open this. It was there last week. They had a great one called Carousel that I thought was amazing for publishers and never used, or not used often enough. And it was basically, you could put like 5 photos in, and it would be like a swipeable gallery. Each photo could be linked to a different page and have a different caption to it. So it was a great way to present a series of articles or something like that. They do have something like that in instant experience. It is really kind of misleading because it's not until you're like halfway through creating one, which is a little more difficult than the others, that it tells you it's an ad and you have to pay money.
How do you get there again, Matt?
To this?
Yeah.
That.
Okay.
And it's always a great idea to be really aware of Facebook new features. Something that I just found out this morning is now rolling out, and it's just on a select few timelines, is 3D photos. Has anyone seen this yet?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's a really cool feature where if you have a phone with a dual lens camera on it, you take a photo, there's an option in Facebook to take a 3D photo. And what happens is as the user scrolls in their newsfeed, the photo itself moves. So it just shows a little bit of depth with the background. Really eye-catching way. If you start using it today, your competition isn't using it yet. You're going to stand out a little bit more. And that really matters on Facebook. So, when you are posting those links, what should you do? What are some best practices? First of all, any questions on the other stuff? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just regarding the photo posts.
Mm-hmm.
The goal of all of this is to ultimately drive traffic to the website.
Yeah.
So my worry with the photos is that people will just see the photo and log it. And never, will never actually make it to the store. How would you combat that?
But if they like photos and they don't like links, then they never would have seen anything from you. And you never would have been in their mind at all. So Facebook, a big misconception about Facebook that is due a little to their history and evolution, but today it's a misconception, that Facebook is a distribution engine. It is not a distribution engine, it is an engagement engine. So your goal is not necessarily to get links, it's to engage with your readers, to learn more about your readers and find ways to bring that into hopefully your journalism. And then through that engagement,
care about a reader who's never going to read the article.
Through that engagement, though, you can get them to read the article. And through the algorithm itself, by them engaging more with you, they will see your article more. So the goal ultimately is distribution, but don't just think this is an RSS feed where you can dump links and people are going to see it or not see it and choose to follow it or not, or choose to click through the link or not click through the link. They will never see it if they're not engaged with you in other settings.
So that would go to my other concern, which would be splitting comments. So let's say we have one story and we do one link post and then one photo post. You're splitting the comments between two sets of people. So is the idea that they would never have seen it anyway, so it's okay to split that, the usually uncivil debate that follows whatever post, but
I have a comment on that later in my slideshow. It's a set of comments that you would not have otherwise had. And again, by commenting with it, so now they are more likely to see that post, but also their friends and family are more likely to see that post because that is one of the signals to the algorithm. It isn't just whether you engage with something, but does your social circle engage with something? Okay, any other questions? Yes.
The same people, let's say your contributors, are always liking and sharing. Does it help or penalize you?
If it's the same people?
Do you think Facebook pays attention to that?
I don't think it hurts you. It's on a per user basis.
Okay.
I mean, okay, so then there's like the accounts that were just deactivated this week, I think.
Yeah.
It was, I think, tracked down by the fact that I didn't read deeply enough into it, that a bunch of users kept like kind of ciphering through the same kind of funnel and liking the same posts, and it was made to game the engagement algorithm. But they ended up being bots. So there weren't people behind them. Facebook deactivated those accounts. There's a question over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Just when you write text. Yeah. So when you decide not to do any of the other things on Facebook, but you just write a thing in the box and hit post, that's a status text. Now, here I mention it again. So when you have a link, there's the photo, right? There's the headline. There's the description, which is a little bit of text below the headline that sometimes shows. We'll get to that. And then above it, there's the text, right? You can put a quote or you can put whatever you're going to put. That I still call the status text, even though it's attached to a link. If someone has some better language for me, I'm very open to hearing it. Right, so 4 elements. So one thing to keep in mind is that is the use case. We were talking about the use case when someone comes to your Facebook page. Well, there's the use case when someone is just being on Facebook and seeing links in their newsfeed. What is the normal person doing when they're on Facebook? Okay, I'm sorry? Yeah, they didn't come to Facebook because they wanted to find news. They might be happy to find news once they're there, but usually they're sitting in the car waiting for their kid to get out of soccer practice, or if they're a certain kind of person, they're on the toilet, or whatever it is, and they're just swiping through, and it's almost mindless. And that's one of the reasons photos and images do well, okay? And with links, the images play a real outsized role, all right? So you want recognizable, just as a best practices, well, to go to the use case, what you want to do is make them stop. You want to distract them, you want to entertain them, you want to surprise them, maybe you want to scare them. It's enough of that. But when it comes to the photos, the best practices include recognizable faces, kind of crops from shoulder up and close to the camera. Some of this is just the way the brain is wired. When you see 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, you stop. I have a 3-month-old son. It's the first thing he notices. He sees me, he locks on, that's it. And that continues for the rest of your life. Bright colors, dramatic action. One thing I want to say, I see this a lot with small publishers. They, get the flyer for the upcoming civic meeting or whatever, and they scan it in, and that stays their featured photo or whatever that gets pulled into Facebook, and then it gets cropped down, and it looks like garbage, and no one sees it. So please don't do that. You can see resources here from Buffer that have the updated image sizes at all times. It's updated pretty often, but they haven't updated the new one, probably because it's not official yet. Facebook is piloting square photos for link previews. Right now they are horizontal. Any questions? So now we're at the headlines. Again, people aren't looking for news on Facebook, they want to be distracted. Okay, so what should you do? Again, they're kind of skimming, they're scanning, just like faces, they tend to lock on to names, proper nouns, organizations, titles, things that they identify with. If I'm scrolling my feed, I'm probably going to stop on Kingsborough High School, because that's where I went to high school. It's just, my eyes are going to lock onto that before anything else other than maybe eyes and so that's one thing. You want to include that in there, and it's wise to do it anyway, because if you're writing the same headlines for SEO, you're going to want it in there too. You could attend my next session if you want to learn more about that. Quick note while I've got this up. How many of you on WordPress? How many of you use Yoast SEO? Okay. How many of you have some kind of plugin where you can rewrite headlines or choose separate thumbnail photos or write special descriptions just for Facebook? Okay, so Yoast SEO does that. There's plugins that do it. I think Social Warfare is one I've heard of. I can't really recommend too many plugins because I haven't had personal experience with them. But Yoast I do recommend because it covers a lot of things you want to do. It does SEO. You can write special ones for social. You can write special stuff for Twitter. So anyway. You want to include those things. You want to be punchy. You want to pique curiosity. So one thing we run into is you obviously want to maintain your integrity. You don't want to give into clickbait. You guys are journalistic operations. Your jobs are to inform. So you don't want to do you'll never guess or anything like that. You should not do that. And also Facebook is looking out for that language as well now and bans it or tries to ban it. One trick I've found is that usually when you're writing your stories, you have your lead, which kind of quickly summarizes or piques some interest into the story, and then you have your nut graph, which is why I'm telling this story. And usually you can kind of unpack the nut graph and realize that that is where you're talking about the impact that kind of hits someone in the gut on why it matters to their life. And that's what you can reframe your headline around and still be within, not even within, but proudly adhering to journalistic ethics. So my examples here, new development coming to Main Street. You might see how Main Street skyline will look different next year, or water rates increasing 5%. Why you'll pay more on next month's water bill. Hows and whys, good, just explainers in general, do well in social. And then the description. So this is underneath the headline in some cases on some platform, on some devices. I don't want to get into all the different scenarios in which descriptions are shown or not shown. Just know sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. When they are in some of the scenarios I've seen on mobile, it's, I might have this backwards actually. Yeah, on mobile I think it's 75 characters, get 110 characters on desktop. Not too worried about this because again, sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. But again, it should just entice, you know. It doesn't need to be something that, you know, that would be a normal lead or the excerpt you might have on your own site or add much more information. You can really just shorter is better, and just something that really kind of teases what you already have in the headline is a good way to get them to click through. But these are kind of stylistic decisions. Oh, I mentioned Yoast here. Yoast. And then the status text. So that's that text up top that we were talking about before. Just note that I say up top, but there are scenarios such as when multiple people in your newsfeed share the same link, where the status text actually go below the link. So that's one thing to just keep in mind. Don't say like, check out our article down there and use down emojis or anything. So it's another opportunity to really bring the reader in. So you definitely want to use unique text. Don't just rewrite the head. Don't use the same headline text or the I wrote status. That should be description text. You know, and I do see that a lot. You also want to make sure that you haven't like, you know, when you go and put a link on Facebook, you put the link in, it generates the link preview. Sometimes that link stays behind in the text area. Remove that. Doesn't need to be there anymore. Yeah, some ideas of what you could do here. Every audience is different. I get a lot of like, what should I do, what works best? And it really is up to your readers, the tone of your publication, the approach you want to take. Some things that work, compelling quotes from the story, some more info that might bring them in, a reaction like, whoa, you know, not my favorite. Emojis are really good for helping it stand out in the feed, but they're emojis. And so you mentioned the toxicity of comments, and they can definitely be a problem. They're always a problem no matter what environment they're in on your site or elsewhere. And what I guide the people I work with on is, or what I suggest, is use a really specific question. Now I've said that Facebook is an engagement engine. You don't need engagement for engagement's sake, right? But engagement that benefits your distribution is good, and that's one thing we covered. But engagement that benefits your journalism is also really good. So when you are when you use a status update to go with a link to try and galvanize discussion, don't say, what do you think? What do you think is an invitation to be like, it sucks, you know? Instead, put your reporter's hat on and think about it like a reporter. Who is the person in your audience most impacted by this article you're sharing? What do you want to hear from them? And then that's the follow-up question. That's the question you put up there, and try to focus the discussion around that. And then as they respond, ask them additional follow-ups. And then you take that stuff and you make a new story out of it, or you use it in a separate Facebook feature. And the stories that you make out of it, and or if you use them for some sort of Facebook feature, you do a slideshow with their opinions or something like that, it's got a built-in audience. It came from your Facebook audience. Your Facebook audience is going to love it again when you repost it. So it becomes more shareable. It becomes more engaging. Any thoughts on that? You want to argue?
No.
Next one, a little contentious. Number 9, sign up for Business Manager. When Business Manager rolled out a while ago, and publishers were first urged to go on it, it got a pretty bad name, pretty bad rep. Certain things didn't work the way you expected them to work. If you've been managing your page, you know, just the way anyone would normally manage a page, there were now extra steps you had to go through. You had to use the Pages app if you weren't using that. The shortcuts in your sidebar were gone. There were all these little things that did add up to a bunch of extra clicks that a lot of people found annoying. I'm very happy to say that sometime in August or September, They rolled out an update, fixed the vast majority of those issues. It is much easier to use. You can pretty much continue to go back to using your page the way you were using it before and still be in Business Manager. And then on top of it, Business Manager offers a couple of extra tools that we'll touch on real quickly. It also gives you increased security for your account, and that's really important these days. It's particularly if you have a team or you manage other people's ad accounts, or you bring in an ad agency or something to do some marketing on your behalf. All of that access is now centralized, whereas before you had to do it in different parts of Facebook, and then you can forget to remove someone's permission or something like that. It's a lot safer. Also, if you want to sell your business, I saw exit plans was like the biggest thing on the breakout board out there. I think it makes it easier to just turn the keys over. I mean, that's small fries when it comes to selling a business, but you have a lot more to do with trouble. And then finally, I believe it's an integrity signal.
To add to that, so I was at Facebook in New York on Wednesday for an update on some of their local news products, and one of the things that they mentioned on several of the upcoming products that are going to be released is that news sites will have to access it through Business Manager.
Yeah.
Just to know, as they start to roll out other things to help us, those things will be accessed through that.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes. So that's definitely another thing. And then the integrity signal is, as we know, Facebook has been trying to go through and kind of purge bad actors on Facebook. And they're looking for all kinds of signals to first kind of flag them about who is good and who is bad. And I believe that Business Manager is one of them. In fact, there's a lot of hoops. We're going to talk about those that you have to jump through now. That when I first started doing these discussions a year ago, there were almost none of these existed. And I was actually kind of stunned when I put this together and realized how many there are, and there's a couple more as well. They're just hoops that are put there that I believe if you're taking the time to do them, then Facebook is saying, okay, yeah, a bot or a malicious actor wouldn't do this, and this helps them recognize who's real and who's not. Okay, so after you're in Business Manager, again, my slides are available. I have the link at the end. So you don't have to jot these down. You want to verify your domain. This will allow you to edit headlines and descriptions and stuff within Facebook. It's a nice to have. I believe, again, also a integrity signal. And it's a little annoying to do. The instructions are here. You want to get approved for political content ads. If you're not advertising now and you think it's not a big deal, and then one day you decide to write an ad and run it, and you have to do it somewhat urgently, you most likely will run into a problem. There's something like 20 issues of national importance, and they're scanning the destination page for very broad, almost shockingly broad language that will get pretty much any news site stuck into their political content. Issues of, political ads with political content. So they're not political ads per se. And you'll be stopped. And then this process is something like 4 to 6 weeks, if I remember correctly. And you have to submit, where it's contentious is you have to submit personal, real personal information, your social security number, and I think government ID. They claim they destroy it after, 48 hours after approval. Don't quote me on all these numbers. Yes?
So I have done all that.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly getting ads not approved.
Mm-hmm.
Like today was a piece about vaping use climbing for North Carolina teenagers. We had one yesterday about
You're boosting.
we're trying to boost them or run an ad with them, and we're getting not approved.
And is the rejection because of the political filter?
Correct.
Yeah.
And another one that our governor proposed Hurricane Florence relief budget, North Carolina, right? Also not approved because it was a governor budget. Maddening. How can we make this fixed? I have done it. I've given them my license. I've given them my
The system
social
is very
Yeah. Did you get the
janky.
letter? You
I got the letter twice.
So if you've gotten the letter and you're still not, you've entered your code and it's still not working for you,
Yep.
email me and Ned. And we're flagging those with Facebook directly. We've been working through those.
Okay,
Yep.
'cause I can email you
Yep.
multiple,
Do the, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you can send me any screenshots.
And-
I'll-
yeah, I can.
And there's going to be, a lot of you might have issues with various steps of this, like verifying your domain. You might go through that and the verification doesn't go through. In fact, they have kind of a known glitch attached to that. Anytime you run up against a roadblock like that, email me and or staff. And we will try our best to work you through it. And then finally, so the political ad index, which is not actually a business manager thing, I just kind of threw it in here because I didn't want to make it 13. So there's the news index, so the political content ad archives, so they take all these things and they save them and they make them publicly available, which, by the way, a really great thing to do if you're looking to go and snoop on, get ideas for like marketing language in your own promotional ads. But anyway, there's a separate area just for news publishers, and to get into that, that's in Business Manager. It's pretty quick. It's a 3-screen process, Steph.
For which one? I'm sorry.
News index.
Yes. I think it's 2 or 3 screens.
It's the only thing
Yeah.
about Facebook that Dylan Smith has never complained about. So that
He
is-
actually said, this is a real live quote, it was very easy.
What was this?
I heard him.
What was this?
Yeah.
Apply to
So
me in the index for news.
So we're
this
now
is
learning.
a big deal.
Yeah, we're now learning it's a big deal. They're publicly saying that it is, it's to differentiate between political ads and news in the archive, but it sounds like they are using it to actually guide them on product rollouts and who's a publisher, a news publisher, and maybe do outreach to them to pilot things.
How I would I'm sorry, I'm like speaking from the corner over here. But you know how you apply for Google News to get into the Google News so you can come up in that index? I would say that this Facebook index is like tantamount to that. It's like I think it will end up being the same sort of thing. So that you apply to be in Google News, you show up there, you apply to be in the Facebook News Index. We've been asking Facebook for months, and you can ask Matt Dorenzo and Sue Cross at INN for just months and months. Can you please have a trusted list of news organizations? We have trusted news organizations that jump through hoops to get in line. And you should trust them too, especially with all the misinformation that we see. And so we've been having this conversation endlessly. And we kept hearing back from the company that wasn't something that they could do at the time, et cetera, et cetera. But now, because of everything happening with the political ad archive especially, they are creating a news index of trusted sites. And so it is important also. One of the things that they're talking about is they're trying to base their criteria on similar criteria for like Lion and INN and ONA, things like that. So they're looking to other journalism institutions. So that could be important going forward for other products that they roll out.
Anyone know when I'm supposed to start talking? 4:30. Okay, cool. Wait, what time is it?
4:40.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, my last slide is super easy. Super easy. It's get access to Crowdtangle. I'm not going to talk too much about Crowdtangle, what Crowdtangle is. Basically, it is, it's owned by Facebook. It does analytics and monitoring of your social media and social media generally. It really will help you discover stories that are gaining steam in your community if you take a few minutes to set it up. It'll help you evaluate your competitor strategy, and you can create a dashboard to cover stories and stuff like that. These two are really good. I use it all the time for that. How to get that? Once again, get access by contacting Stephanie Murray at the Center for Cooperative Media. There's her email, and sorry, Steph.
That's all right.
And that
How do we get the
is-
slides?
I'm sorry?
How do we get your slides?
So it's right here. bit.ly/FB Fun Slides. Okay.
I just wanted to say, so I won't rant about it. I was opposed to the whole political archive thing. I've ranted other places. But I might be an interesting case study because I didn't sign up for it. And the interesting thing is I'm still trying to boost posts.
Yeah.
And over the past, I would say 6 weeks or so, I've been able to boost things that when they first turned it all on, I wasn't able to. Some things still get rejected, but it almost seems arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's very interesting. So I might maybe I will stay
Yeah.
out of it and continue to be a
Yeah.
study
You know,
where
they've
half
hired
people
a
don't.
bunch of people,
Yeah.
actual humans,
So it has changed.
who are doing that
Yeah.
now. That's interesting.
So,
That's good to know.
Oh, it's a bit loose, by the way.
No, I just needed to check when I'm supposed to start the next one, which is in 3 minutes. So if you all would like to stay for an SEO version of the same thing.
So Ned, real quick,
Yeah.
should you change your cover photo at all, or leave it the same? I mean,
Oh,
is there,
yes,
I mean,
you
should we change it up so people have something fresh?
Yes, you should definitely keep it fresh. You should be trying different things all the time, and always be trying to get a better idea of what's working. But also, just freshening up is a nice thing to do. You know, I would say at least do it quarterly and make it like seasonal or something. Any other questions? One thing, you guys now have a few people have mentioned boosting. I can't really get into it, but I really do not believe any Lion publisher should be boosting anything. You should be making actual Facebook ads and spending your money in a way that is targeted and measurable and has actual results. And boosting, 95% of the cases I've seen, again, just pulling a number here, but do not do that. If you really want to get into it, find me later and I will explain why.